The story of the Knights Templar begins in a world unlike our own, a world shaped by faith, conflict, and the constant tension between survival and revelation. Europe in the early 12th century was a continent of extremes. Kingdoms and principalities jostled for power. The Church held spiritual and temporal sway over countless lives, and the Holy Land, a region sacred to multiple faiths, became the center of ceaseless crusading conflict. Into this turbulent landscape stepped a small band of men, whose vision and purpose would come to stretch far beyond the battlefield. They were not merely soldiers, nor were they simply monks. They were a fusion of devotion and discipline, a hybrid form of warrior priesthood that would leave an indelible mark on history, yet whose full story remains hidden behind layers of secrecy, myth, and suppressed truth. The Templars' inception in 1119 is traditionally attributed to Hugues de Payens, a French noble, who, along with 8 other knights, approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem with a daring proposal. They would protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land, offering security in a region where banditry, warfare, and political instability were constants. This mission, outwardly simple, concealed ambitions far greater than mere escort duty. They were creating an order that would transcend the limitations of ordinary knighthood, combining the spiritual rigor of monastic life with the tactical prowess of elite warriors. To the people of Europe and the pilgrims who relied upon them, the Templars appeared as protectors of faith, a bastion of courage in a dangerous world. But beneath this visible role, a more profound purpose was taking shape: the cultivation, preservation, and eventual revelation of knowledge the world was not yet ready to fully comprehend. From the outset, the Templars demonstrated a rare combination of discipline, foresight, and adaptability. They understood that survival depended not only on the sword but on strategy, finance, and influence. Their distinctive white mantles, adorned with a blood-red cross, symbolized not just purity of purpose, but a unity and identity that set them apart from other knights. Yet the symbolism went deeper than mere identification. It was a mark of secrecy, a signal that each member had committed to a life that demanded unwavering loyalty, intellectual engagement, and spiritual vigilance. The Templars were not simply following a code. They were living an intricate system of discipline designed to cultivate insight, resilience, and an awareness of forces beyond the ordinary. In this sense, their white and red cross was not just a symbol of faith, but a key to an inner world, a shared language among initiates who understood that the physical and metaphysical were intertwined. Early accounts suggest that the Templars quickly gained the trust of the Church and European monarchs. Papal recognition in 1129 allowed them to operate independently of local authorities, granting privileges that elevated them above ordinary knights and enabling the establishment of commanderies across Europe and the Holy Land. Each commandery was a center of not only military operations, but finance, administration, and knowledge preservation. Pilgrims deposited funds, nobles entrusted estates, and kings relied upon the order's discretion and integrity. In this way, the Templars became one of the first large-scale financial networks in Europe, managing resources with extraordinary efficiency. Yet, their financial acumen was more than practical. It was strategic. By controlling wealth, the Templars could secure influence, fund expeditions, and protect secrets that, if exposed, could have challenged the established order of church and state alike. Central to the Templars' enduring mystique was their relationship with knowledge. Unlike ordinary knights, whose expertise lay in combat and strategy, the Templars cultivated an intellectual curiosity and esoteric discipline that connected them to the hidden currents of the world. From Jerusalem to Acre, they had access to libraries, temples, and archives that contained texts from civilizations predating Christendom. Manuscripts in Greek, Aramaic, Arabic, and Hebrew, covering astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, and theology. Some texts hinted at knowledge so profound that even the most educated clergy might have been unable to comprehend it. The Templars' approach was meticulous. They copied manuscripts, studied celestial alignments, and created encrypted records to preserve information that could be dangerous or revolutionary if misinterpreted. In effect, they became custodians of knowledge, blending scholarship with secrecy, creating a legacy whose ramifications extend far beyond their martial exploits. The Order's dual identity as monks and warriors allowed them to navigate both physical and intellectual realms. Their martial discipline ensured survival and victory in a world defined by violence. Yet their spiritual and intellectual pursuits positioned them to perceive patterns invisible to others. It is in this duality that the Templars' uniqueness is most evident. Other orders could fight, other monks could pray and study. The Templars were forging a synthesis of action and insight, of observable power and hidden understanding, creating a culture where secrecy, discipline, and vision were as essential as swordsmanship or strategy. Within this framework, every decision, every journey, every fortress built was part of a broader mission, one that sought to reconcile the seen with the unseen, the temporal with the eternal. Evidence suggests that the Templars were drawn to locations of power and mystery. Temples, ruins, subterranean chambers, and sacred geometries all held significance beyond mere aesthetics or defense. It is speculated that they were seeking patterns in these structures, ways to connect human achievement to celestial events, and perhaps even hidden caches of knowledge or relics whose existence had been deliberately obscured. Some of these explorations were practical, securing safe routes for pilgrims, mapping terrain, or establishing defensible positions. Others were clearly symbolic, ritualistic, or exploratory, reflecting a belief that the world itself was layered with meaning and that understanding these layers could yield insight, power, or revelation. In many ways, their interest in architecture, geography, and ruins hints at an early form of cryptography, encoded knowledge hidden in plain sight, intended for those who could interpret its subtle language. The Templars' rise coincided with a period of immense political complexity. European monarchs and the Church were constantly negotiating alliances, asserting control, and suppressing dissent. Within this environment, the Templars functioned as both allies and independent actors. Their loyalty to the Pope and to the principles of the Order granted them autonomy, yet also made them targets of envy and fear. Kings coveted their wealth, local lords their influence, and rival factions their secrets. The Templars' ability to maintain neutrality in some conflicts, combined with their disciplined operations and loyalty, positioned them uniquely as both a stabilizing force and a potential threat. Their rise was meteoric, yet it was precisely their independence, their wealth, and their mastery of hidden knowledge that would later render them vulnerable to annihilation. From the earliest days, the Templars exhibited an understanding of secrecy and timing that was remarkable. Every manuscript copied, every relic safeguarded, every fortress aligned, and every journey undertaken was meticulously planned. They understood that knowledge, unlike wealth or power, was ephemeral and potentially dangerous if exposed prematurely. For this reason, the Order cultivated a layered approach to secrecy, ensuring that only those who had earned their place could access the deeper truths they guarded. This approach to information was not merely pragmatic. It was philosophical, reflecting a worldview in which the human mind had to be prepared to comprehend higher truths. Knowledge, in the Templar conception, was sacred, living, and potentially transformative. It was both a responsibility and a burden. The Order's early centuries also reflect a keen understanding of prophecy and celestial patterns. Although little is definitively known, surviving manuscripts suggest that the Templars were aware of astronomical cycles, eclipses, and alignments, interpreting these events as markers for timing their actions rituals, and preservation of knowledge. Some texts hint at prophecies connected to these celestial phenomena, suggesting that the Templars saw themselves not merely as participants in history, but as stewards of an unfolding cosmic plan. This awareness may have informed their architectural choices, the locations of their commanderies, and the codification of their symbols. Every aspect of their operations, from mundane logistics to esoteric practice, was integrated into a system that blended temporal action with spiritual foresight. By the time the order had fully established itself, it had become a paradox. Outwardly a devout military order, inwardly a repository of secrets, a custodian of knowledge, and a visionary organization operating across the boundaries of faith, power, and understanding. Pilgrims saw guardians. Monarchs saw allies or financiers. Historians often saw myths. Yet within the walls of Templar fortresses, in hidden chambers, and in the folds of manuscripts, an entirely different story unfolded. A story of wisdom guarded, patterns observed, and secrets protected, all within a framework of discipline and devotion that few could comprehend. It was a dual existence, one of both visibility and invisibility, of worldly power and otherworldly knowledge, a synthesis that made the Templars one of the most enigmatic and enduring orders in history. Even now, 8 centuries later, the fascination with the Templars endures because of this layered complexity. Their rise is not merely a story of war and conquest, but of insight, foresight, and the preservation of wisdom. They remind us that history is rarely simple and that power, when combined with intellect and secrecy, can create legacies that survive far beyond the lifespan of the men who forged them. The Templars were not merely knights. They were architects of a hidden narrative, guardians of forbidden knowledge, and observers of a universe whose patterns most humans could not yet discern. To study their beginnings is to glimpse a world of depth, mystery, and cosmic significance, a world in which every decision, every alignment, and every symbol carried consequences far greater than the surface I could see. The origins of the Knights Templar are, therefore, more than the foundation of a military order. They are the foundation of a story that stretches across centuries, encompassing devotion, intellect, secrecy, and cosmic awareness. Their emergence in the Holy Land, their rapid expansion, their meticulous cultivation of knowledge, and their subtle understanding of the universe set the stage for centuries of mystery, conspiracy, and fascination. From their earliest days, the Templars demonstrated that they were not simply participants in history. They were shapers, observers, and custodians of a hidden order, a secret intelligence interwoven with the events of the world. It is in these beginnings, in the delicate balance between faith, strategy, and knowledge, that the true legend of the Templars takes root, laying the groundwork for the mysteries, prophecies, and forbidden wisdom that would come to define their enduring legacy. The early years of the Knights Templar were defined not only by their martial prowess, but also by the unique structure and discipline that set them apart from every other order of the time. While the Crusades were raging and armies clashed over sacred lands, the Templars carved out a dual existence, simultaneously men of war and men of profound spiritual and intellectual depth. This duality is what allowed them to ascend so quickly from a small band of 9 knights to an order with influence that spanned Europe and the Levant. Their discipline was exacting, their hierarchy precise, and their commitment to secrecy total. The white mantle they wore, adorned with the blood-red cross, was more than a uniform. It was a signal, a symbol, and a code. It represented purity of purpose, readiness for sacrifice, and, most importantly, the shared understanding that each knight carried within him knowledge and responsibilities beyond those visible to the world. Training in the order was both rigorous and comprehensive. Knights were expected to master the art of war, of course, but also horsemanship, strategy, logistics, and diplomacy. However, alongside these physical disciplines, They were initiated into studies of theology, philosophy, and the hidden patterns of the world around them. Manuscripts collected from Jerusalem and surrounding regions were not merely read. They were analyzed, copied, and encoded. Knowledge from Greek philosophers, Arab mathematicians, and Jewish mystics was integrated into a complex framework, providing the Templars with insights that extended beyond conventional medieval understanding. They were acutely aware of the intersections between earthly power and divine guidance, between temporal strategy and cosmic pattern, and they cultivated a worldview in which understanding the universe was as vital as mastering the battlefield. The order structure reinforced secrecy and discipline. At the top stood the Grand Master, a figure of authority who commanded not only military operations, but also the distribution and protection of knowledge. Beneath him were marshals, commanders of fortresses, and administrators overseeing estates, finance, and logistics. Each member had defined duties, yet each was also expected to contribute to the order's collective intelligence. Novices were carefully observed and tested, proving not only their loyalty and courage, but also their capacity to engage with knowledge and ritual. Those deemed ready were initiated into deeper layers of the order's secrets, texts, symbols, and rituals that hinted at truths beyond the ordinary scope of understanding. This meticulous progression ensured that the Templars' knowledge remained protected, accessible only to those who had proven capable of both comprehension and discretion. The collection of texts and manuscripts was central to their operations. Unlike many other knights who relied solely on physical strength and military strategy, the Templars placed enormous value on understanding patterns, both human and celestial. Libraries in Jerusalem, Acre, and other commanderies housed scrolls and codices from civilizations that predated Christianity, including Arabic works on astronomy, mathematics, and medicine, as well as Greek and Roman philosophical texts. Some of these manuscripts contained astrological tables, maps of sacred sites, and prophecies coded in symbols or allegory. The Templars believed that knowledge was not static. It was living, dangerous, and transformative. They understood that wisdom without discipline could be as destructive as a sword in untrained hands, and they developed a system in which only those prepared to wield it responsibly could access it. The Templars' involvement with finance also distinguished them from other military orders. They developed banking systems that allowed pilgrims to deposit funds in one location and withdraw them in another, effectively creating a form of medieval credit. Estates and properties across Europe provided resources to fund operations in the Holy Land, and these assets were managed with remarkable sophistication. While financial mastery may appear mundane in comparison to the order's esoteric pursuits, it served a deeper purpose. Control of wealth allowed the Templars to maintain independence, fund exploration of sacred sites, and safeguard knowledge and relics. In an age when power was inseparable from wealth, the Templars' financial acumen was both practical and strategic, ensuring that the order's influence could persist even in times of crisis. Central to the order's rise was its relationship with the Church. Papal recognition in 1129 granted the Templars privileges that insulated them from local authorities and allowed them to operate across national boundaries. They answered directly to the Pope, giving them a unique autonomy and a sense of divine mandate. Yet with this privilege came danger. Autonomy created envy, and the order's growing wealth and influence made it a target for monarchs and rival powers. The Templars understood that their survival depended on discretion, loyalty, and an ability to navigate a complex web of political and spiritual obligations. Every fortress, every transaction, and every expedition was executed with an awareness that visibility brought risk and secrecy brought survival. The Templars' approach to secrecy extended to rituals, symbols, and even architecture. Commanderies were constructed not only for defense, but also for the observation of celestial phenomena. Some scholars suggest that particular alignments of buildings, crypts, and chapels corresponded to solstices, equinoxes, or eclipses, providing the order with a practical and symbolic method of connecting earthly operations with cosmic patterns. Within these walls, candles flickered across geometric carvings, manuscripts were carefully cataloged, and rituals were performed in harmony with celestial events. The Templars' understanding of the universe was not merely theoretical. It was experiential, integrating observation, mathematics, and ritual into a cohesive practice that bound knowledge, power, and devotion together. Pilgrims and contemporaries often describe the Templars with awe. Their discipline, valor, and apparent divine favors set them apart. Yet beneath these outward appearances, the order was a repository of forbidden knowledge. Some manuscripts suggest that the Templars were engaged in decoding prophecies, interpreting celestial events, and tracking cycles in history with extraordinary precision. Knowledge of eclipses, planetary alignments, and sacred numerology informed both strategy and ritual. The Red Eclipse, for instance, was considered a moment of cosmic significance, when the veil between the known and the hidden thinned, and when secrets could be safely revealed or acted upon. Such knowledge was encoded in symbols, architecture, and manuscripts, creating layers of protection and guidance that transcended generations. The Order's growing influence extended beyond Europe into the Holy Land, where they established fortresses and logistical networks. These fortresses were not merely military installations. They were centers of learning, observation, and administration. Maps, manuscripts, and relics were stored in carefully secured chambers, often hidden behind secret doors or encoded in symbolic carvings. Knights trained not only in combat, but also in the interpretation of these symbols, ensuring that the Order's knowledge was preserved even amidst war and upheaval. In effect, the Templars were building a parallel system of knowledge, one that combined martial power, financial influence, and esoteric wisdom into a cohesive, resilient network. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Templars was their foresight. They understood the impermanence of institutions, the volatility of politics, and the vulnerability of knowledge. Manuscripts were copied and encoded, relics hidden, and treasures dispersed in ways that could survive centuries. Even as their public profile grew, the Order prepared for potential collapse, ensuring that the essence of their wisdom would endure. This prescience is evident in surviving documents and architectural traces, suggesting a strategic sophistication far beyond conventional military or religious thinking. The Templars were not merely participants in history. They were curators, archivists, and silent architects of events that would unfold long after their physical presence had faded. Their dual identity, knights and scholars, warriors and custodians of forbidden knowledge, allowed the Templars to operate in multiple spheres simultaneously. They navigated political intrigue, military strategy, religious devotion, and esoteric exploration with equal competence. This adaptability, coupled with their discipline and secrecy, made them formidable allies and dangerous adversaries. Monarchs sought their favor, enemies feared their influence, and even the Church, while officially supportive, could not entirely control or predict the Order's actions. The Templars' genius lay in this balance. They were visible enough to wield influence, invisible enough to safeguard secrets, and disciplined enough to survive challenges that would have destroyed lesser organizations. By the early 13th century, the Templars had become a phenomenon whose scope extended far beyond what contemporary observers could fully understand. Their commanderies dotted the landscape of Europe and the Holy Land. Their financial networks spanned continents, and their libraries contained knowledge that bridged civilizations. Pilgrims, nobles, and kings all recognized the Order's power, yet few could comprehend the depth of the secrets they guarded. These included manuscripts encoded with cosmology, prophecies, sacred geometry, and advanced mathematics, all tied to an understanding of the world that combined observation, ritual, and interpretation. The Templars had created a living system of knowledge, one that was as much about preparation for the future as it was about immediate action. The Templars' early centuries illustrate a striking paradox. They were at once the most visible and the most secretive order of their time. Outwardly, they were devout monks, courageous warriors, and skilled financiers. Inwardly, they were guardians of forbidden knowledge, interpreters of cosmic patterns, and participants in a tradition that sought to understand the hidden structures of reality. Their rise, influence, and discipline set the stage for mysteries that would endure long after their dramatic fall, influencing secret societies, architectural alignments, and the pursuit of esoteric wisdom. The seeds of their enduring legend were planted in these early years, cultivated through discipline, vision, and an unwavering commitment to a mission that extended beyond immediate history, beyond mortal life, and into the realm of timeless knowledge. The Templars' reputation as fearless warriors of faith was well-earned, but it only tells a fraction of the story. Beneath the surface of their battles and campaigns lay a far more intricate agenda, one that was invisible to kings, bishops, and the common folk. While the world saw armored knights charging into the fray, the Templars were quietly shaping the flow of information, wealth, and influence across continents. Their reach extended far beyond the battlefields of the Holy Land, infiltrating the courts of Europe, the monasteries of the West, and the hidden enclaves of knowledge in the East. It is within these unseen corridors of power that the Order's true genius, and the source of so much mystery, reveals itself. They were not only warriors, they were strategists, archivists, and custodians of secrets the world was not yet ready to understand. From the moment they established their first commanderies in Jerusalem and Acre, the Templars understood that influence came not just from swords but from networks. They set up early banking systems that allowed nobles, monarchs, and pilgrims to deposit money and valuables, effectively creating a web of trust that spanned nations. This was not mere financial acumen. It was a deliberate means of entrenching power and securing knowledge. Every transaction, every ledger, every shipment of gold carried with it information about alliances, movements, and intentions. The Templars knew that true security lay not in walls or armies alone, but in the control of information, the silent infrastructure of influence that allowed them to operate above suspicion while simultaneously touching every corner of Christendom. The very act of managing wealth became a tool of secrecy, a method by which the Order could fund its hidden pursuits and safeguard objects and texts that might have been too dangerous for ordinary eyes. But the Templars' ambitions did not stop at finance. They were avid collectors of relics, artifacts, and knowledge. Some texts were so ancient and enigmatic that they defied conventional understanding, containing maps of lost civilizations, celestial calculations, or coded instructions whose purpose is still debated today. Archaeologists and historians have often dismissed such claims as legend, yet scattered evidence hints at a meticulous system of preservation and secrecy. Every manuscript copied, every relic hidden, every obscure symbol etched into stone or parchment was part of a deliberate effort to safeguard information. Some scholars suggest that the Templars may have even possessed knowledge of sacred geometry, advanced astronomy, and cryptic prophecies that connected earthly events with celestial alignments. To the outside observer, these actions might have seemed eccentric or excessive. To the Templars, they were essential, a form of preparation for revelations that might come centuries later. Their influence extended into the political and spiritual realms as well. Monarchs sought their counsel, not merely because of their military might, but because the Order seemed to possess insight into matters beyond the ordinary. Diplomats, kings, and popes relied on the Templars to navigate delicate negotiations, secure territories, and protect holy relics. They were intermediaries in disputes, advisors in secret, and sometimes the invisible hand guiding decisions whose consequences would echo for generations. Every alliance they formed, every fortress they built, and every order they executed was meticulously planned to reinforce both their public role as protectors of Christendom and their clandestine mission to preserve knowledge that could alter the perception of power itself. In essence, the Templars were not merely participants in history. They were its hidden architects. The Templars' hidden agenda is also evident in their fascination with sacred sites. Ancient temples, underground vaults, and ruins long abandoned by civilizations past became focal points of their study and exploration. Scholars and conspiracy theorists alike have speculated that these sites contained encoded wisdom, knowledge of the cosmos, and instructions for rituals tied to prophecy. The Order's expeditions were not random acts of curiosity. They were deliberate searches for understanding, carefully aligned with an overarching purpose that blended the spiritual with the pragmatic. Some texts hint at their obsession with the geography of the sacred, mapping the world in ways that transcended political borders and military campaigns. Every journey, every crusade, and every mission became part of a grander design that sought to uncover patterns hidden in plain sight, a design that may still influence the world today in ways historians have yet to fully acknowledge. Even their daily practices suggest an organization operating on multiple levels at once. Discipline, ritual, and strict codes of conduct were not merely about piety. They were methods for cultivating insight, controlling chaos, and maintaining secrecy. Initiates learned not just how to fight, but how to observe, record, and interpret. Knowledge was layered, and only those who ascended the ranks could access its deepest forms. To the uninitiated, the Templars were warriors and monks. To those within, they were participants in an intellectual and spiritual journey designed to prepare them for revelations that would be guarded for centuries. Their secrecy was both shield and signal, a way of ensuring that only the worthy could witness, understand, and protect the truths they held. It is in this hidden agenda that the Templars' enduring mystery resides. They were simultaneously devout, pragmatic, and visionary, straddling the line between the known and the unknown. Their martial prowess earned fame, but it was their subtle control over information, their obsession with sacred knowledge, and their quiet manipulation of wealth and influence that allowed them to become one of history's most enigmatic orders. They operated in a world where the line between legend and reality blurred, where prophecy and strategy intertwined, and where the consequences of revelation could be both magnificent and catastrophic. To understand the Templars fully is to recognize that their greatest victories were often invisible. Their most significant battles fought not on the open field, but in the hidden recesses of knowledge, power, and the human imagination. In the chronicles of the Templars, scattered and fragmentary though they may be, there exists a recurring mention of a celestial phenomenon so rare, so ominous, that it was said to herald the unveiling of truths too profound for ordinary minds. Known in their cryptic writings as the Red Eclipse, it was more than a mere astronomical event. It was a signal, a marker, a cosmic signpost entwined with prophecy. Scholars debate whether these eclipses were observed as naturally occurring events or interpreted as mystical symbols. But within the Templars' worldview, every star, moon, and shadow in the heavens was imbued with meaning. They believed that the cosmos itself could communicate, and that the alignment of planets and the crimson glow of an eclipsed moon were messages to those who had the knowledge to see and understand them. The origins of the Red Eclipse prophecy are shrouded in obscurity, with some suggesting it predates the Order itself, handed down from the remnants of ancient civilizations in the East. During the Crusades, the Templars had access to libraries and temples in Jerusalem, Antioch, and Damascus, places where manuscripts older than Christianity were kept. Within these scrolls were references to celestial cycles, omens, and predictions that seemed to indicate a recurring event when the moon would turn red and shadow the earth in a profound alignment. To the Templars, this was not superstition. It was a key, a map encoded in the sky itself, pointing toward moments in history when secrets were meant to be revealed, when the dormant knowledge they had protected might finally intersect with human events. Descriptions of the Red Eclipse within Templar texts are cryptic and deliberate, often couched in allegory and layered symbolism. They spoke of shadows covering not just the land but the mind, a time when hidden truths would be veiled in darkness, yet simultaneously brought closer to revelation. Some passages describe the eclipse as a threshold, a liminal moment between worlds, where spiritual insight and earthly awareness could converge. The Templars seemed to understand that knowledge was dangerous in the wrong hands, and the Red Eclipse marked a time when the timing was right to reveal, to pass on, or to conceal their secrets depending on the readiness of humanity. It is this careful calibration between concealment and disclosure that defines the enigmatic genius of their order. Ancient accounts suggest that the Templars prepared meticulously for these events. Certain fortresses and commanderies are believed to have been constructed or aligned in ways that corresponded with celestial movements. Hidden chambers, observatories, and encoded symbols within their architecture may have served as tools for interpreting the skies, reading the subtle messages of eclipses, and understanding the timing of their own actions. The Red Eclipse, then, was not simply a phenomenon to be observed. It was a signal to act, to decode, and to align the hidden treasures of knowledge with the movements of the world above. In a sense, it was a cosmic clock, counting down to moments when history and prophecy intersected. But what knowledge was tied to this event? Some historians and theorists speculate that it was linked to revelations about the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, or even texts from civilizations that predated recorded history. Others argue that it may have contained esoteric wisdom concerning the cycles of empires, the rise and fall of rulers, or secrets of celestial mechanics and natural law that were far beyond medieval understanding. The Templars' obsession with the Red Eclipse suggests that they were not merely guardians of relics, but custodians of a philosophy that connected the cosmos, the human spirit, and the unfolding of events on Earth. Every observation, every ritual, and every hidden manuscript may have been a piece of a grand puzzle, designed to be assembled only by those capable of seeing the patterns across centuries. The Red Eclipse prophecy was also deeply intertwined with secrecy and timing. The Templars knew that knowledge too soon revealed could be catastrophic, while knowledge revealed too late could be lost forever. In some manuscripts, eclipses are described as moments when the veil between the known and the unknown thins, when decisions must be made, and when the guardians of knowledge must act with precision. There is even speculation that certain rituals performed during these eclipses were intended to amplify understanding, to synchronize the mind and spirit with the movements of the heavens. The Order's insistence on secrecy and ritual during these events suggests a sophisticated approach, one that combined astronomy, theology, and metaphysics into a single, coherent practice designed to preserve both insight and safety. Legends tell of a small group of Templars gathering in silence during such eclipses, in chambers carved deep into mountains or hidden beneath abbeys, reading celestial signs, cross-referencing ancient texts, and interpreting symbols that connected the heavens to the terrestrial world. Candles flickered against walls etched with sacred geometry. Manuscripts were carefully opened, and whispered chants echoed in the shadows. These were not idle ceremonies. They were moments of active engagement with the universe, when the Order's custodial duties met cosmic instruction. Observers, if any had dared to watch, would have seen a disciplined, almost ritualistic orchestration, a silent communion with the universe itself, guided by the promise that the Red Eclipse would illuminate paths hidden to the ordinary eye. Even today, the prophecy retains its allure. Astronomers, historians, and conspiracy theorists alike examine historical eclipses, comparing dates with events in medieval Europe, searching for patterns that might validate the Templars' predictions. Some point to political upheavals, unexplained disappearances, or sudden shifts in power that coincided with rare celestial events. Others focus on artifacts, maps, and manuscripts that appear to encode knowledge about cycles in nature and history, suggesting that the Templars may have left markers deliberately to guide future generations. The Red Eclipse, it seems, was more than a warning. It was a signpost, a beacon, a call to those who could interpret its message and act upon it wisely. In exploring the Red Eclipse prophecy, one begins to understand the Templars not merely as soldiers of faith, but as visionaries who sought to read the universe itself. They were attuned to rhythms beyond the comprehension of ordinary men, observing the heavens with a knowledge that combined science, spirituality, and intuition. To them, eclipses were not mere coincidences. They were meaningful alignments, coded in both light and shadow, pointing toward knowledge that had the power to alter the understanding of reality. As the centuries have passed, much of their work has been lost, obscured, or dismissed as legend, yet the echoes of their cosmic insight remain, whispered in the margins of history, waiting for those who dare to look up and see the sky through the eyes of the Knights Templar. The Templars were not merely Knights of the Cross. They were masters of symbolism, architects of secrets encoded in every aspect of their world. From the intricate carvings on their abbeys to the patterns embroidered into their mantles, every mark, every line, every shadow was potentially a key to knowledge that the ordinary eye could not perceive. To the untrained observer, their symbols were religious ornamentation, reflecting devotion to God and the Church. Yet, for the initiated, these same symbols conveyed messages of immense complexity, maps of hidden treasures, directions to sacred relics, or even the esoteric principles of the universe itself. The order seemed to understand, perhaps better than any other institution of the medieval world, that knowledge could be preserved and communicated through form, pattern, and repetition, a silent language that could survive centuries. Among the most prominent of these symbols was the Templar cross, a simple yet enigmatic design, red on a white field. On the surface, it represented their faith and devotion, but within certain manuscripts and correspondences, scholars have discovered that the cross was also linked to celestial events, geometrical alignments, and coded prophecies. Some suggest that variations of the cross, engraved subtly in stone or stitched into banners, could indicate secret locations, sacred dates, or pathways to hidden knowledge. In this way, the Templars transformed ordinary religious iconography into a sophisticated system of communication, one that could guide the perceptive while remaining invisible to those uninitiated. The cross was not merely a symbol of faith. It was a beacon, a cipher, and perhaps even a warning. Stone carvings in Templar commanderies reveal a similar language. In abbeys, cloisters, and fortresses, curious patterns and shapes appear, triangles, circles, and spirals that some historians have dismissed as decorative. But when examined closely, these shapes often correspond with astronomical phenomena, ley lines, or sacred geometry that hints at a deeper understanding of the universe. Certain carvings are aligned with the rising or setting sun on particular days, suggesting that the Templars observed celestial cycles and encoded this knowledge in permanent structures. Others argue that the symbols were intended to guide initiates through hidden passages or to mark secret chambers where manuscripts, relics, and treasures were stored. Every corner of a Templar stronghold, every archway and pillar, carried the potential to reveal a story beyond what history has recorded. Even their seals and personal emblems were more than mere identifiers. The famous double-headed eagle, the mysterious knight facing another knight on horseback, and the intricate pentagrams that appear in Templar art all suggest coded instructions or hidden meanings. Some of these symbols have been linked to astrology, alchemy, or even early interpretations of mathematics and geometry. The repetition of certain motifs in manuscripts, on tombs, and in ceremonial spaces points to an intentional design, a language meant for those who had the training and insight to decode it. To the casual observer, these symbols were simply ornate or ceremonial. To the initiated, they were maps, guides, and keys to understanding secrets that the world was not ready to receive. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Templar symbolism is its apparent connection to the Red Eclipse prophecy. Several manuscripts suggest that certain symbols were intended to be read or interpreted during times of celestial significance, with the alignment of stars, planets, or the moon serving as a form of cipher. Rituals, architectural designs, and sacred texts all converge in what appears to be a coordinated system of knowledge preservation. Some researchers propose that the symbols were part of a larger plan to encode cosmic events into earthly artifacts, effectively bridging the heavens and the world below. In this sense, the Templars were not merely guarding secrets. They were embedding them into the fabric of reality itself, leaving traces that could endure long after the order itself had vanished. Maps were another medium for Templar secrecy. Many surviving charts attributed to the order contain strange markings, seemingly random lines, and cryptic notes that historians have struggled to interpret. Some lines correspond to rivers, mountains, or trade routes, but others seem to indicate hidden locations, sacred sites, or pathways to relics lost to history. These maps were not meant for casual use. They were instruments of a deeper knowledge, guiding those who could read the symbols, understand the geometry, and interpret the celestial cues embedded within. The very act of map-making became a ritualized form of secrecy, a way to encode information in a medium that appeared innocuous to outsiders but was profoundly informative to the initiated. Even Templar manuscripts themselves were often constructed with layered meanings. Texts were written with deliberate ambiguity, employing metaphor, allegory, and coded language. Marginalia, notes in the corners, and variations in lettering were all potentially meaningful, creating a multidimensional system of knowledge preservation. Some manuscripts, long dismissed as theological treatises, may have been repositories of advanced astronomy, esoteric mathematics, or prophecies concerning the alignment of human events with celestial phenomena. The Templars' mastery of symbolism, then, extended far beyond simple visual codes. It encompassed written language, architecture, ritual, and geography, creating a network of interconnected signs that could only be fully understood by those trained to perceive them. It is this combination of symbols, codes, and hidden meanings that has kept the mystery of the Templars alive for centuries. The Order's use of symbolism was not random, nor merely decorative. It was strategic, meticulous, and deeply intentional. In every cross, every spiral, every map, and every manuscript, they left traces of knowledge, guiding future generations who might have the insight to interpret them. The Templars understood that true knowledge was dangerous if revealed too soon, and thus their symbols served both as a protective measure and as a promise that some truths would survive, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right time, the right observer, or the right celestial alignment to unlock them. Through their mastery of symbols, the Templars transformed ordinary objects into vessels of hidden wisdom, ordinary places into repositories of secret knowledge, and ordinary lives into a silent testament to the power of hidden truth. Every stone, every line, every pattern was intentional, a whisper across centuries, a hint that history is never as simple as it appears. And as the Red Eclipse approached, those symbols were said to awaken, aligning earthly design with celestial pattern, bridging the mundane and the divine, and illuminating the path for those who dared to follow the Knights of the Cross into the deepest layers of forbidden knowledge. Among the most tantalizing enigmas surrounding the Knights Templar are the texts and manuscripts they were said to have collected, created, or guarded, works of knowledge that vanished almost as mysteriously as the order itself. These lost texts, sometimes described in hushed references within surviving documents, are said to contain wisdom so profound that it challenged the accepted understanding of history, religion, and the cosmos. To the world at large, the Templars' manuscripts were simply theological treatises, devotional writings, or military records. Yet whispers among scholars, archivists, and conspiracy theorists suggest that some of these documents were far more dangerous, containing forbidden knowledge, information that could illuminate truths long suppressed or even reshape humanity's understanding of itself. What is particularly striking is how little of this knowledge remains, and how deliberately it appears to have been erased. Historical accounts describe the Templars as meticulous record keepers, logging details of finances, relics, and expeditions. But beyond these mundane records, the order is believed to have accumulated texts from the far reaches of the known world. When Crusaders ventured into Jerusalem, Antioch, and other sacred cities, they encountered libraries, temples, and archives that held documents far older than Christianity itself. Scrolls in Arabic, Greek, Aramaic, and even older scripts were collected, copied, and sometimes encoded into Templar manuscripts. These texts reportedly covered topics ranging from advanced astronomy and mathematics to alchemy, sacred geometry, and prophecies concerning the rise and fall of empires. Some scholars argue that such knowledge was deliberately hidden, for it could have been perceived as heretical or even dangerous by the Church and European monarchs, while others suggest that the Templars themselves understood that humanity might not be ready to fully comprehend such truths. The abrupt dissolution of the order in 1307 only deepened the mystery. King Philip IV of France, motivated by debt, ambition, and fear of the Templars' growing influence, orchestrated the arrests of the knights and the seizure of their assets. What most histories emphasize is the brutality of this purge: torture, forced confessions, and executions by fire. What they rarely mention is the fate of the knowledge the order had protected for nearly 2 centuries. Some documents were undoubtedly destroyed, but countless accounts suggest that many were smuggled out, hidden in secret networks, or encoded in ways that could only be deciphered by initiates. Libraries vanished, vaults were emptied, and sacred texts disappeared from public record, leaving behind tantalizing hints of wisdom whose full scope may never be known. Some of the manuscripts attributed to the Templars are described as having unusual formats, employing ciphers, codes, and symbolic language. Marginal notes, subtle shifts in script, and even geometric designs embedded in the text suggest a level of encryption that would frustrate even the most diligent scholar. These texts were not intended for casual reading. They were tools for a select few, vessels of hidden insight, and keys to knowledge the general populace was not yet ready to confront. Some theorists even speculate that certain manuscripts contained instructions for rituals, methods for interpreting celestial events, or guidelines for unlocking physical and spiritual powers that modern understanding cannot fully explain. To the Templars, text was not just information, it was protection, guidance, and, in some cases, a form of prophecy encoded in symbols. Accounts from later centuries hint at Templar manuscripts surviving in unexpected places. Some suggest that portions of their library were absorbed into early Masonic texts, Rosicrucian manuscripts, or hidden in the vaults of monasteries far from France. Others speak of documents smuggled to the Iberian Peninsula or Scotland, kept safe by secretive networks that carried the Templar legacy forward. Within these texts, codes and cryptic annotations appear to describe events centuries in advance, celestial alignments, and the locations of sacred relics. Whether these claims are factual or the product of legend, They reinforced the notion that the Templars were not merely warriors or bankers. They were stewards of knowledge designed to transcend generations. The loss of these texts has given rise to speculation and myth. Some theorists propose that the Templars had discovered evidence challenging the very foundations of the Church, ancient wisdom about humanity's origin, or maps to sacred treasures. Others suggest they preserved prophecies about celestial events, such as eclipses, comets, or planetary alignments, which they believed would influence the fate of civilizations. The consistent theme in these theories is that the knowledge was considered too powerful, too transformative, or too dangerous to be widely known. It was carefully guarded, encoded, and, when necessary, hidden in ways that ensured only the worthy could access it. Even surviving fragments hint at the depth and breadth of the Templars' understanding. Descriptions of celestial mechanics, symbolic mathematics, and cryptic allegories in certain manuscripts suggest a sophisticated integration of science, spirituality, and philosophy. Some texts appear to encode cycles of history, predictions of political upheavals, or instructions for rituals synchronized with celestial events like the Red Eclipse. While mainstream historians have often dismissed these connections as fanciful, the precision and recurrence of these patterns in surviving records suggest intentionality. The Templars' obsession with timing, alignment, and interpretation points to an organization that regarded knowledge not as a commodity, but as a sacred responsibility. The allure of forbidden knowledge has persisted through centuries precisely because so much remains hidden. Every claim of a Templar manuscript discovered, every reference to a lost text, reignites curiosity and speculation. Modern researchers continue to trace leads across Europe, the Middle East, and even North Africa, seeking evidence of manuscripts that may have survived the Order's violent suppression. Libraries, private collections, and even archaeological sites occasionally reveal fragments, cryptic notes, obscure diagrams, or encoded maps that hint at wisdom once held in a far larger and more dangerous collection. These fragments tantalize with the promise of insight, offering glimpses into a world where knowledge was intertwined with power, secrecy, and destiny. In contemplating the lost texts of the Templars, one begins to grasp the scope of what has been obscured. These were not simple books or records. They were repositories of understanding, encoded wisdom, and prophetic insight. Their disappearance fuels mystery, invites speculation, and hints at a civilization of thought operating parallel to history as we know it. The Red Eclipse, the cryptic symbols, the secret rituals, all converge around the notion that knowledge, carefully guarded and intentionally hidden, has the power to shape the world. The Templars may have vanished as an order, but the manuscripts they left behind, or ensured would vanish, continue to echo across centuries, whispering of truths that may yet be revealed to those patient, perceptive enough to uncover them. The sudden collapse of the Knights Templar remains one of history's most chilling betrayals, a moment when power, fear, and greed converged to erase an order that had long seemed untouchable. In the early hours of Friday, October 13th, 1307, a coordinated strike across France saw Templars dragged from their beds, shackled, and thrown into dungeons under the orders of King Philip IV. It was a purge executed with ruthless precision, a calculated move to destroy not just the knights themselves, but the immense network of influence, wealth, and knowledge they had carefully built over nearly 2 centuries. Publicly, the accusations leveled against them were sensational: heresy, blasphemy, and unnatural practices. Secretly, the king coveted their riches, feared their power, and sought to remove a rival capable of challenging the authority of the throne. For the ordinary observer, these events were shocking but comprehensible. The story of corruption punished, a powerful group brought low by justice. But the reality was far more sinister and far more calculated. The Templars, trained in secrecy and foresight, had accumulated knowledge and relics that threatened to expose truths uncomfortable to the monarchy and the church alike. The Order's hidden archives, their encoded manuscripts, and the mysterious artifacts under their protection were far more valuable than gold, and far more dangerous in the wrong hands. In the weeks and months leading up to the arrests, there had been signs that a conspiracy was unfolding against them. Secret correspondences hinted at betrayal among allies. Spies infiltrated the ranks, and misinformation was deliberately spread to justify the coming purge. The Templars were caught in a web of political ambition and fear, a trap set by forces who understood the magnitude of the knowledge the Order possessed. Grand Master Jacques de Molay, the last head of the Order, became the focal point of this tragedy. A man of discipline, intellect, and unshakable resolve, de Molay faced the accusations with remarkable composure. Under torture, many knights confessed to charges they likely did not commit, their confessions distorted to fit the narrative Philip and his advisors desired. Yet de Molay resisted, refusing to betray the secrets of the Order, refusing to relinquish knowledge that had been guarded for centuries. Contemporary chroniclers describe a tension so palpable that even the guards reportedly felt a strange awe at his presence, as if the weight of centuries of hidden wisdom rested upon his shoulders. His steadfastness only heightened the fury of the king and the church, who needed public confessions to legitimize the purge and erase the Templars from history. The trials and executions that followed were as much theater as justice. Many knights were burned at the stake, their deaths intended as a public spectacle, a warning to anyone who might challenge authority. Yet behind the flames, whispers persisted of documents and artifacts being smuggled out of the country, hidden in secret caches or sent to distant lands. Some historians argue that the Templars had prepared for this very eventuality, employing safe routes, loyal agents, and coded messages to ensure that key knowledge survived the massacre. There are accounts of manuscripts appearing later in monasteries, of mysterious relics resurfacing in private collections, and of coded maps influencing events long after the Order had officially ceased to exist. Even in defeat, the Templars' presence could not be entirely erased. What is particularly haunting about the fall of the Templars is the calculated suppression of their history. Chronicles written under church supervision often portray the Order as corrupt, greedy, and heretical, erasing the nuance of their achievements and the breadth of their knowledge. Legends, too, were sanitized or distorted, creating a gap between what truly occurred and what was recorded for posterity. The Red Eclipse, the secret manuscripts, the encoded symbols, all were marginalized, buried beneath layers of political propaganda and fear. Yet fragments survived, hidden in plain sight, in symbols on stone, marginalia in texts, and architectural alignments in abandoned abbeys. These fragments suggest that the purge, while devastating, was never entirely successful in obliterating the Templars' influence. Some accounts hint at the Order's foresight in anticipating betrayal. Certain knights may have dispersed intentionally, blending into other societies, taking knowledge with them, and preserving it in secrecy. The methods were subtle. Some joined monastic orders, others disappeared into remote regions, and a few are rumored to have traveled to the east, safeguarding texts and relics far from the reach of inquisitors. This dispersal ensured that while the Order as a political and military entity was destroyed, the essence of its mission, guarding forbidden knowledge and preparing for future revelations, continued. It was a survival not of bodies, but of ideas, of coded wisdom, and of the Templars' legacy as custodians of hidden truths. The psychological impact of the purge cannot be overstated. The world watched as an unstoppable order was brought to its knees, a demonstration of the power of kings over even the most devout and disciplined institutions. Yet for those who understood the deeper layers, there was a tension between fear and awe, a realization that the Templars' influence might endure in ways not immediately visible. Their symbols, texts, and rituals became the faint pulse of a suppressed intelligence, a hidden network of continuity threading through history. The fall of the Templars was not merely the extinguishing of an order. It was the beginning of a centuries-long effort to conceal, protect, and in some mysterious way, ensure the eventual resurfacing of their knowledge. Ultimately, the collapse of the order illustrates the delicate balance between visibility and secrecy, power and knowledge. The Templars had reached a point where their influence was undeniable, yet it was precisely that influence which made them vulnerable. Kings and priests feared not only their wealth, but the secrets they carried, secrets that could challenge authority, destabilize institutions, or illuminate truths inconvenient to those in power. And while fire consumed their bodies, their manuscripts, their relics, and their fortresses, the ideas they had encoded, the symbols they had carved, and the knowledge they had protected continued to exist, quietly waiting for a future in which the world might once again be ready to perceive it. The story of the Templars' fall is thus a story of betrayal, endurance, and secrecy. It is a narrative that intertwines political ambition with cosmic mystery, earthly greed with spiritual foresight. The dramatic end of the order on the streets of Paris was but one chapter. The greater story persisted in shadows, in codes, and in manuscripts that survived against all odds. To study this collapse is to glimpse the duality of the Templars, fierce warriors and silent guardians, men destroyed in body but immortal in their ideas, leaving behind a legacy that continues to provoke fascination, speculation, and the relentless search for forbidden knowledge. Even as flames consumed the bodies of the Templars and their commanderies fell silent, the spirit of the order did not vanish. Some knights, foresight and disciplined, anticipated the purge and vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only whispers and riddles. They were no longer soldiers of the cross in the open, yet their mission, the guardianship of forbidden knowledge and sacred secrets, continued with a stealth and precision that history barely records. These survivors moved through Europe and beyond, embedding themselves in societies, religious institutions, and secretive circles, carrying with them the manuscripts, relics, and codes that could not be destroyed. Their footsteps became invisible threads connecting centuries, weaving a hidden continuity that would influence events long after their apparent disappearance. These Templars in exile did not abandon their purpose. They transformed from knights and monks into custodians of esoteric knowledge, operating in networks designed to withstand political persecution. Some found refuge in Scotland, aligning with sympathetic nobles who understood the danger and value of the Templar legacy. Others traveled to Portugal and Spain, where the Reconquista created regions of relative autonomy and protection, allowing the order to preserve manuscripts and artifacts in secret. It is in these remote locations that the Templars may have left subtle marks of their presence, symbols carved into abbeys, hidden crypts beneath castles, and encoded messages in ancient maps. Every act was deliberate, a means to ensure that the wisdom they carried would survive, waiting for a future era in which the world might again be ready to perceive it. There is evidence suggesting that some Templars infiltrated or influenced emerging secret societies, long thought to have been founded centuries later. Freemasonry, Rosicrucian orders, and other esoteric groups contain rituals, symbols, and coded references that bear uncanny resemblance to Templar practices. Some historians propose that this was not coincidence, but a deliberate strategy to embed their knowledge into organizations capable of surviving political upheaval and historical erasure. These societies, operating under layers of allegory and ritual, became vessels through which Templar wisdom could endure. It is said that through such channels, ideas of sacred geometry, celestial cycles, and encrypted prophecies continued to circulate, invisible to the uninitiated but alive and potent for those trained to see. Even in exile, the Templars were attentive to celestial phenomena, particularly events like the Red Eclipse. Manuscripts suggest that the order maintained detailed observations of the heavens, linking these events to historical cycles and human affairs. Rituals, calendars, and maps were meticulously updated, ensuring that the knowledge of timing and alignment, critical to the revelation of their secrets, was preserved. These exiled knights became the invisible archivists of history, meticulously recording, encoding, and safeguarding knowledge that could be misinterpreted or weaponized if mishandled. It was a life of constant vigilance, a commitment to secrecy that surpassed mere survival, reflecting a deep understanding of both human nature and the cosmos. The dispersal of Templar knowledge also had practical strategies. Some members are thought to have hidden treasures and sacred relics in secret locations, often using cryptic clues and symbols that only initiates could interpret. Manuscripts and codices were carefully encoded and distributed across monasteries, private estates, and hidden chambers, creating a decentralized network designed to endure despite persecution. In some cases, these methods were so sophisticated that centuries later, researchers and treasure hunters continue to search for their meaning, following faint clues left by a group whose influence is more felt in legend than in documented history. The Templars' mastery of concealment, combined with their understanding of timing and celestial events, allowed their knowledge to survive even the most thorough attempts at eradication. Survival required not only secrecy, but also adaptability. The exiled Templars assumed multiple identities, blending into local communities while maintaining lines of communication with one another. They became patrons of art, science, and architecture, embedding symbolic references to sacred knowledge in structures that would endure for centuries. Churches, castles, and public monuments bear subtle markers that may have been left as messages for future generations, clues to the existence of hidden wisdom, or warnings of dangers yet to come. Even the alignment of buildings with celestial phenomena, the proportions of arches, and the placement of stone carvings could be part of a deliberate system of encoding knowledge, preserving it against the erosion of time and human suspicion. The Templars' continued presence in secret also allowed them to influence historical events indirectly. By operating through networks of allies, sympathetic rulers, and emerging societies, they could guide decisions, protect treasures, and safeguard knowledge. Their influence was invisible, yet pervasive, a hidden current beneath the surface of history. Some scholars suggest that their dispersed members acted as advisors, intermediaries, or silent observers in political and religious affairs, ensuring that the legacy of the order could survive without attracting unwanted attention. They understood that the most powerful interventions are often those that leave no visible trace. The story of the Templars in hiding is a story of resilience, intelligence, and foresight. It is a reminder that even when an order is destroyed in body, its ideas can persist, carried by those committed to a mission larger than themselves. These surviving knights became guardians of a legacy, ensuring that knowledge once deemed forbidden was not lost entirely, that symbols continued to guide those who could interpret them, and that celestial and prophetic cycles remained under observation. The exiled Templars transformed tragedy into strategy, death into preservation, and secrecy into enduring influence, creating a network that would ripple through centuries and continue to fascinate, inspire, and mystify those who seek to uncover the hidden truths of history. The Knights Templar were more than just knights. They were masters of symbolism, embedding layers of meaning into everything they touched. From the soaring spires of Gothic cathedrals to the intricate carvings on their manuscripts, symbols served as a secret language, a hidden code accessible only to those initiated into their mysteries. At first glance, these markings might appear as simple religious decoration, heraldic embellishments, or artistic flourishes, but to the trained eye, They revealed a map of knowledge far deeper than any ordinary church or fortress could contain. The cross of the Templars, for example, was never just a mark of Christian faith. Its geometry, placement, and proportion were carefully chosen, echoing patterns found in sacred architecture, in the stars, and even in alchemical texts. Some scholars suggest that the very form of the cross encoded principles of balance, cosmic alignment, and spiritual ascent. Similarly, their use of the double-headed eagle, serpentine motifs, and interlacing patterns was not purely ornamental. These symbols spoke to cycles of life and death, hidden wisdom passed from master to apprentice, and the perpetual tension between the seen and unseen worlds. Hidden in plain sight, these signs acted like a silent chorus, narrating a story the church might have preferred to suppress. In castles, churches, and public spaces that once belonged to or were influenced by the Templars, these symbols often drew from ancient pagan and mystical traditions, blending Hermetic philosophy, numerology, and celestial observations into a coherent, if cryptic, language. Even the orientation of buildings, the alignment of windows, and the placement of statues followed patterns that reflected the Templars' understanding of the heavens and the earth, suggesting that they were not only warriors of faith, but custodians of an ancient, hidden cosmology. For centuries, these symbols remained largely unrecognized by the uninitiated, overlooked as mere decoration. Yet, when examined through the lens of esoteric knowledge, a fascinating picture emerges, a network of encoded messages that point to hidden chambers, secret texts, and prophecies that have endured through the ages. Some scholars argue that the Red Eclipse, a celestial event woven into Templar prophecies, may even be referenced indirectly in these symbols, from intricate carvings on cathedral portals to cryptic motifs in Templar seals. Each spiral, cross, or animal depiction was carefully designed to trigger a recognition in those attuned to the esoteric, creating a silent conversation across centuries. Even today, explorers, historians, and conspiracy theorists comb these sites, slowly piecing together the visual language of the Templars. They find clues not just in documents, but in the way light falls across a chapel floor at sunrise, or how a particular carving mirrors the movement of the stars. Every detail, however subtle, is a breadcrumb left intentionally by the Order, a quiet challenge to those willing to look deeper. The Templars, it seems, understood that true knowledge could never be shouted from the rooftops. It had to be concealed, layered, and encoded so that only the worthy, patient, and observant could decipher it. And so, as we walk through the echoes of their architecture, manuscripts, and sacred spaces, we are invited to peer behind the veil of ordinary history, to consider the possibility that symbols we have always seen, yet never understood, might be part of a grand design, a cosmic map, pointing towards secrets that remain forbidden to most, but tantalizingly within reach to those who dare to follow the hidden path. The Knights Templar were more than warriors or keepers of treasure. They were initiates into mysteries that few outside their circle could ever comprehend. Their rituals and ceremonies were deliberately layered with symbolism, designed to guide a neophyte from the world of the ordinary into the hidden truths that lay beneath the surface of reality. Initiation was not simply a matter of taking vows or donning a white mantle. It was a journey, a carefully constructed path of transformation. In the dimly lit halls of Templar commanderies, candidates would undergo rites that combined elements of religious devotion, psychological discipline, and what some scholars suggest were esoteric teachings inherited from older, possibly pre-Christian traditions. These ceremonies often employed symbolic acts that represented death and rebirth, the shedding of ignorance and the awakening of insight. Each gesture, each whispered phrase, carried layers of meaning accessible only to those who had been taught to see beyond the literal. Beyond the outward ritual, there were oral traditions, secret hand signs, and coded manuscripts that acted as keys to understanding the deeper knowledge. Some of these teachings were said to describe the hidden structure of the cosmos, the alignment of celestial bodies, and the flow of energy between the spiritual and material worlds. The more advanced the Templar became, the more he was allowed to witness, learn, and interpret. It was a hierarchical process. Knowledge was not given freely, for the order believed that premature exposure could corrupt the mind or invite danger. There are accounts, fragmented and cryptic, that suggest some rituals involved meditation with sacred relics, or solitary contemplation in spaces designed to alter perception and expand consciousness. These practices were intended to sharpen intuition, reveal hidden patterns in nature, and cultivate a heightened awareness of both earthly and divine realms. Observers at the time, particularly the clergy or kings who mistrusted the order, often misinterpreted these rituals as heretical or occult, labeling them as dark practices intended to subvert the church. Yet, the Templars' own writings suggest that their true goal was knowledge, understanding the laws of creation, deciphering prophecies, and guarding wisdom that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Among the secrets supposedly passed through initiation was a knowledge of celestial events, including eclipses, planetary alignments, and rare astronomical phenomena. The kind of information that could be used to mark time, predict events, or signal the fulfillment of a prophecy. The Red Eclipse, a motif woven into Templar lore, may have been one such celestial marker, a symbol that only initiates could interpret correctly. Every detail of their ritual, from the placement of candles to the direction of a bow or the tone of a chant, was calibrated to convey hidden meaning. It was, in essence, a form of living code, actions and symbols intertwined to guide the soul toward insight. To the uninitiated, it may have appeared as strange or even sinister. To the enlightened, it was a roadmap to understanding the universe in ways that ordinary learning could never convey. The secrecy surrounding these practices was essential. Knowledge, after all, is a powerful force, and the Templars understood that revelation without discipline could be catastrophic. Through centuries of careful preservation, through secrecy and coded symbolism, these rituals and teachings became a hidden legacy, a system designed to endure long after the fall of the order itself. And today, as historians, mystics, and curious seekers examine the remnants of Templar commanderies, manuscripts, and sacred spaces, echoes of these initiatory practices can still be felt. The patterns, symbols, and hidden chambers whisper of a wisdom that was never meant for the many, but only for those who were patient, attentive, and willing to journey beyond the veil of ordinary history. In this way, the Knights Templar were not just guardians of gold or relics. They were custodians of knowledge, weaving a tapestry of ritual, symbol, and secret wisdom that challenges our understanding of what the order truly sought to protect and reveal. The allure of the Knights Templar has always been entwined with whispers of lost relics and hidden libraries, treasures of knowledge that were never meant for public eyes. Beyond the gold and silver that made the order wealthy, there were objects of far greater significance. Manuscripts written in cryptic codes, sacred artifacts imbued with spiritual and historical weight, and relics whose origins predated even the Crusades. These were not merely ceremonial. They were keys to understanding the mysteries the Templars were sworn to guard. According to fragmentary accounts and later legends, some of these items were stolen or hidden during the order's violent dissolution, secreted away in locations known only to the initiated. Castles, chapels, and remote monasteries are said to conceal vaults where scrolls, illuminated with strange symbols and writings, lay untouched for centuries, waiting for the day when they might be rediscovered. Among these treasures, the Holy Grail looms largest, a cup, a vessel, or perhaps a metaphor for sacred knowledge. The Templars' connection to the Grail is surrounded by a thick fog of myth and speculation. Some say the order understood its deeper meaning, not as a mere relic, but as a source of profound spiritual insight, a repository of divine knowledge that could transform those who comprehended its secrets. Beyond the Grail, there are tales of other relics, the Spear of Destiny, sacred manuscripts, and even cryptic astrolabes that encoded celestial events. Many of these were likely lost to history, destroyed, or hidden so effectively that even today their exact locations remain unknown. Yet the Templars' mastery of secrecy ensured that the knowledge they possessed did not vanish entirely. Some of it was concealed in plain sight, encrypted in art, architecture, and symbols scattered across Europe. Others claim that fragments of their wisdom passed through clandestine networks, preserved by surviving members and sympathetic scholars, continuing to influence events long after the Order's formal end. Over the centuries, countless explorers, historians, and treasure hunters have attempted to uncover these relics and manuscripts, driven by both curiosity and the promise of discovery. Many returned empty-handed, while others found tantalizing clues. A hidden chamber behind a cathedral wall, a cryptic manuscript in an old library, or a carved symbol on a forgotten monastery. Each discovery hinted at a deeper, interconnected network of knowledge, an intricate web the Templars wove across centuries. Modern theories suggest that some relics may have been encoded not only to protect them from physical theft, but also to prevent their knowledge from falling into untrained hands. Only those capable of interpreting Templar symbolism, understanding their complex initiation rituals, and recognizing astrological cues could hope to unlock their secrets. The connection between these relics and the Red Eclipse prophecy adds another layer of intrigue. It is believed that certain artifacts, when aligned with celestial events, could reveal hidden messages or trigger a deeper understanding of the prophecy itself. The idea that objects and cosmic phenomena might intersect to convey forbidden knowledge speaks to a Templar worldview in which the material and spiritual realms are intimately connected, and where insight is reserved for those who follow the correct path of initiation and discernment. Even today, researchers and mystics study old maps, diagrams, and architectural sites, seeking patterns and alignments that may point to these lost relics. The pursuit of Templar treasures is as much about uncovering historical artifacts as it is about reclaiming hidden wisdom, piecing together a legacy that has been intentionally obscured. In the interplay between myth and fact, treasure and knowledge, the Templars leave us with a haunting question. What remains hidden, waiting to be found, and what truths might still challenge our understanding of history, faith, and the cosmos itself? Every hidden manuscript, every buried relic, every forgotten artifact is a fragment of a larger puzzle, a whisper of the forbidden knowledge that the Knights Templar devoted their lives to protecting. As the centuries passed, the legend of the Red Eclipse became one of the most compelling and mysterious threads in Templar lore, a celestial marker tied to prophecy and forbidden knowledge. Unlike ordinary eclipses, the Red Eclipse was said to carry a rare and ominous significance, its appearance foretelling upheavals, revelations, and a moment when hidden truths might be glimpsed by those who knew how to read the signs. Historical records suggest that the Templars observed the heavens with extraordinary precision, using their knowledge of astronomy not only to navigate distant lands, but also to track celestial events that could align with their esoteric prophecies. The Red Eclipse, they believed, was not merely a spectacle for the naked eye. It was a signal, a cosmic key embedded within the universe itself, waiting to unlock doors of wisdom that had long been sealed. Ancient manuscripts and fragments of Templar writings hint at rituals and observations performed specifically during such events, where light, shadow, and celestial positioning were used to reveal hidden meanings in sacred texts or architectural layouts. The anticipation of the Red Eclipse was both spiritual and practical. It offered an opportunity to connect human understanding with the rhythm of the cosmos, to perceive patterns in history that might otherwise remain invisible. Some accounts suggest that the Templars associated these eclipses with cycles of renewal and destruction, reflecting a belief that humanity's spiritual evolution was intertwined with cosmic forces beyond ordinary perception. The symbolism of the red hue was equally significant, representing blood, sacrifice, transformation, and a subtle convergence of earthly and divine energies. It was, in essence, a bridge between the visible and invisible realms, a celestial event that could awaken awareness of the deeper currents of existence. The approach of the Red Eclipse, according to Templar lore, was also a warning. Knowledge, when revealed, could be perilous in untrained hands. There are whispered stories of relics and manuscripts being deliberately concealed in alignment with such celestial events, ensuring that only the vigilant and initiated could uncover their true meaning at precisely the right time. Modern scholars, both skeptical and intrigued, have attempted to trace these alignments, studying medieval chronicles, astronomical tables, and Templar architecture for evidence of these hidden calculations. Some claim that the Templars embedded star maps within cathedral windows, floor mosaics, and heraldic symbols, each pointing toward the occurrence of rare eclipses, including the fabled Red Eclipse. The notion of time itself was central to their understanding. They viewed history not as a linear progression, but as a series of cycles, each influenced by celestial phenomena, human action, and divine orchestration. The Red Eclipse was a pivot within these cycles, a moment when the hidden could surface and when prophecy, ritual, and cosmic rhythm intersected. As one delves deeper into these traditions, it becomes evident that the Red Eclipse was more than a prediction. It was a guiding principle, a lens through which the Templars sought to interpret the universe and humanity's place within it. Even today, astronomers, historians, and esoteric researchers search for traces of this knowledge, attempting to understand how a medieval order could so precisely anticipate the interplay between celestial mechanics and spiritual revelation. The Red Eclipse is a reminder that the Knights Templar operated at the nexus of science, mysticism, and prophecy. Their gaze was never limited to the immediate, the tangible, or the conventional. It extended into the heavens, seeking patterns and signals that might illuminate the hidden order of the world. In contemplating the approaching eclipse, one cannot help but sense the tension that the Templars themselves must have felt, the thrill of impending revelation, the weight of responsibility to protect forbidden knowledge, and the understanding that the universe itself might be revealing secrets that could forever alter human perception. Even after the dramatic fall of the Knights Templar, there were those who continued to protect their knowledge, ensuring that the secrets of the order did not vanish into obscurity. These guardians were not always knights in the traditional sense. They were scholars, clerics, alchemists, and initiates who understood that the wisdom accumulated by the Templars could be dangerous if exposed prematurely. Across centuries, networks of secrecy persisted, quietly preserving manuscripts, relics, and esoteric teachings in hidden libraries, private collections, and remote monasteries. Many of these custodians were bound by oaths as stringent as those of the original order, understanding that the pursuit of knowledge was inseparable from responsibility and discretion. They acted as invisible stewards, moving in the shadows of history, shaping the preservation of ideas and the survival of sacred texts that might otherwise have been lost to fire, war, or the erosion of time. Some secret societies claim lineage or inspiration from these surviving networks, tracing their rituals, symbols, and teachings back to the Templars. Others suggest that these guardians influenced political and cultural developments from behind the scenes, subtly guiding events to protect the knowledge they held. Their methods of preservation were meticulous. Codices were hidden behind false walls, concealed in cryptic bindings, or encoded in languages known only to a few initiates. Symbols, glyphs, and diagrams acted as keys, revealing meaning only to those who had been trained to interpret them. Some texts, for instance, might appear to be simple theological commentary, yet within their margins and illustrations lay layers of astrological, alchemical, and philosophical insight. In a way, these hidden libraries became living maps of Templar wisdom, connecting relics, prophecies, and ritual practices across time and space. Modern scholars who have stumbled upon fragments of these materials often describe a sense of awe, as if they are touching a continuum of thought and understanding that transcends centuries. The Guardians themselves understood that knowledge was power, and that some revelations were meant to remain dormant until the right time or the right seeker appeared. The Red Eclipse, mentioned in Templar prophecies, may have been one such trigger, a celestial event intended to unlock certain insights when the world was ready to comprehend them. These networks did not operate in isolation. They were often embedded within monasteries, universities, or noble houses, quietly influencing education, scholarship, and the transmission of classical and mystical knowledge. Through the careful movement of texts and ideas, they ensured that the Templar legacy endured in subtle ways, even when the order itself was destroyed. In some accounts, these guardians were the bridge between the ancient and the modern, carrying forward fragments of knowledge that informed Renaissance scholars, Enlightenment thinkers, and even the architects of modern secret societies. Their work was invisible but vital, a silent testament to the Templars' enduring influence. In those centuries have passed, there are still those who believe that the Guardians' work continues today, that fragments of forbidden knowledge lie scattered across the globe, protected by those who understand its value and the danger of its misuse. The story of these custodians is a reminder that history is not only written in grand battles and political events, but also in the quiet, deliberate efforts of those who work in shadows, preserving the wisdom of the past for future generations. Their vigilance allows us to wonder, what truths remain hidden, waiting for the moment when they will be revealed, and how much of the Templars' vision continues to ripple silently through the world around us. The influence of the Knights Templar did not vanish with the fall of their order. Instead, it echoed subtly through the centuries, leaving traces in unexpected corners of history, culture, and even modern institutions. Though the order was officially disbanded, the ideas, symbols, and secret knowledge they carried seemed to ripple forward, woven into architecture, finance, religious movements, and intellectual circles. Some claim that the principles of Templar organization, their methods of secrecy, and their esoteric teachings influenced later secret societies, including the Freemasons and various mystical orders. In cities across Europe, the legacy of the Templars can be glimpsed in the alignment of cathedrals, the geometry of public squares, and the hidden symbology embedded in the coats of arms of influential families. These subtle traces suggest that the Templars' understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and sacred geometry was not lost, but rather dispersed, forming a hidden infrastructure that supported the survival of their wisdom. Even in the realms of finance and trade, some theorists suggest that the Templars' early banking methods and the network of safe houses across Europe served as prototypes for modern financial systems, hinting at a connection between practical innovation and the stewardship of secret knowledge. Beyond tangible influence, there's a more spiritual and intellectual echo. Templar philosophy emphasized the pursuit of understanding that went beyond the mundane, encouraging exploration of morality, the cosmos, and the mysteries of divine law. This mindset, some argue, subtly shaped intellectual and spiritual movements that valued observation, calculation, and esoteric insight. In art and literature, echoes of Templar symbolism emerge across centuries. Paintings, architectural designs, and literary works sometimes encode the cross, the rose, or other motifs that were central to Templar thought. Scholars and investigators who study these patterns often describe them as a language of influence, a deliberate, almost secret communication across generations, linking the past to the present. Modern interpretations of Templar influence also extend to conspiracy theories and popular culture, where the order is portrayed as a custodian of hidden wisdom, guarding secrets that could disrupt established narratives if revealed. These narratives, though sensationalized at times, often hint at kernels of historical truth. The persistence of coded knowledge, the careful transmission of esoteric practices, and the subtle shaping of societal structures by those who understood the power of information. The Red Eclipse, central to Templar prophecy, is another example of this enduring influence. References to celestial events, cycles, and alignments appear not only in medieval texts, but in later astronomical observations, suggesting that the Templars' understanding of the heavens was more sophisticated than previously acknowledged. Whether through architecture, ritual, or hidden texts, the patterns they left behind continue to resonate, offering glimpses into a worldview where the material and spiritual, the observable and the hidden, were intricately connected. Today, historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts follow these threads, seeking to map the modern echoes of an ancient order. Every aligned stone, every symbolic carving, every preserved manuscript is a testament to the Templars' enduring presence, a reminder that their pursuit of knowledge and their dedication to secrecy did not end with persecution. In tracing these echoes, one begins to see the order not merely as a medieval curiosity, but as a living influence, subtly shaping the way we understand architecture, spirituality, and the hidden currents of history. It is a legacy that challenges us to look beyond surface appearances, to question the seemingly ordinary, and to consider the possibility that the hidden wisdom of the Templars continues to guide, in ways both subtle and profound, the unfolding story of the world. The influence of the Knights Templar did not vanish with the fall of their order. Instead, it echoed subtly through the centuries, leaving traces in unexpected corners of history, culture, and even modern institutions. Though the order was officially disbanded, the ideas, symbols, and secret knowledge they carried seemed to ripple forward, woven into architecture, finance, religious movements, and intellectual circles. Some claim that the principles of Templar organization, their methods of secrecy, and their esoteric teachings influenced later secret societies, including the Freemasons and various mystical orders. In cities across Europe, the legacy of the Templars can be glimpsed in the alignment of cathedrals, the geometry of public squares, and the hidden symbology embedded in the coats of arms of influential families. These subtle traces suggest that the Templars' understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and sacred geometry was not lost, but rather dispersed, forming a hidden infrastructure that supported the survival of their wisdom. Even in the realms of finance and trade, some theorists suggest that the Templars' early banking methods and the network of safe houses across Europe served as prototypes for modern financial systems, hinting at a connection between practical innovation and the stewardship of secret knowledge. Beyond tangible influence, there is a more spiritual and intellectual echo. Templar philosophy emphasized the pursuit of understanding that went beyond the mundane, encouraging exploration of morality, the cosmos, and the mysteries of divine law. This mindset, some argue, subtly shaped intellectual and spiritual movements that valued observation, calculation, and esoteric insight. In art and literature, echoes of Templar symbolism emerge across centuries. Paintings, architectural designs, and literary works sometimes encode the cross, the rose, or other motifs that were central to Templar thought. Scholars and investigators who study these patterns often describe them as a language of influence, a deliberate, almost secret communication across generations, linking the past to the present. Modern interpretations of Templar influence also extend to conspiracy theories and popular culture, where the Order is portrayed as a custodian of hidden wisdom, guarding secrets that could disrupt established narratives if revealed. These narratives, though sensationalized at times, often hint at kernels of historical truth. The persistence of coded knowledge, the careful transmission of esoteric practices, and the subtle shaping of societal structures by those who understood the power of information. The Red Eclipse, central to Templar prophecy, is another example of this enduring influence. References to celestial events, cycles, and alignments appear not only in medieval texts, but in later astronomical observations, suggesting that the Templars' understanding of the heavens was more sophisticated than previously acknowledged. Whether through architecture, ritual, or hidden texts, the patterns they left behind continue to resonate, offering glimpses into a worldview where the material and spiritual, the observable and the hidden, were intricately connected. Today, historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts follow these threads, seeking to map the modern echoes of an ancient order. Every aligned stone, every symbolic carving, every preserved manuscript is a testament to the Templars' enduring presence, a reminder that their pursuit of knowledge and their dedication to secrecy did not end with persecution. In tracing these echoes, one begins to see the order not merely as a medieval curiosity, but as a living influence, subtly shaping the way we understand architecture, spirituality, and the hidden currents of history. It is a legacy that challenges us to look beyond surface appearances, to question the seemingly ordinary, and to consider the possibility that the hidden wisdom of the Templars continues to guide, in ways both subtle and profound, the unfolding story of the world. After centuries of secrecy, the time comes to confront the culmination of Templar prophecy, the hidden revelation that lies at the heart of their mysteries. The Red Eclipse, which had haunted the Order's records and rituals for generations, is more than a celestial phenomenon. It is a symbol, a signal, and a culmination of everything the Templars sought to protect and understand. The prophecy, when pieced together from scattered manuscripts, encoded symbols, and oral traditions, suggests a profound connection between cosmic cycles, human consciousness, and the accumulation of forbidden knowledge. Scholars and esoteric practitioners alike have struggled to interpret its meaning, often encountering fragments that are tantalizing but incomplete, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across time. According to some interpretations, the Red Eclipse marks a moment when hidden truths, long concealed from the public eye, could be revealed, provided they are approached with discernment and readiness. The revelation is not merely historical or material. It is spiritual and intellectual. It involves the convergence of understanding, insight, and perception, allowing those who are prepared to see patterns and connections that ordinary observation would miss. Some historians suggest that the Templars encoded guidance within sacred architecture, relics, and manuscripts to point toward this very moment, a cosmic alignment designed to awaken awareness of deeper truths. The revelation also carries a warning. Knowledge is not neutral. Without the discipline, preparation, and wisdom to wield it, one risks misinterpretation, manipulation, or even catastrophe. The Templars, through their careful initiation rituals and layered teachings, ensured that the most potent truths were accessible only to those capable of understanding them. Modern seekers have attempted to trace the path of this revelation, studying celestial alignments, ancient texts, and surviving Templar relics. Some claim to have glimpsed patterns that confirm the prophecy's accuracy, from astronomical charts perfectly aligned with sacred architecture to symbols embedded in manuscripts that seem to speak directly to those who know how to interpret them. The hidden knowledge suggested by the Red Eclipse touches on themes that resonate even today. The cyclical nature of history, the relationship between cosmic and earthly events, and the possibility that humanity is guided by hidden currents of wisdom that are not immediately visible. It is a revelation that challenges conventional historical narratives, questioning the completeness of our understanding of the past and inviting us to consider the layers of influence, secrecy, and foresight that may have shaped human events. The Red Eclipse, therefore, is both an ending and a beginning, the culmination of centuries of Templar effort to safeguard wisdom, an invitation for modern observers to recognize and interpret the patterns they left behind. It is a climax not only of prophecy, but of human curiosity, bridging the medieval and the modern, the mystical and the tangible. As one contemplates the full scope of this revelation, the profound scope of the Templars' vision becomes apparent. They were not merely a martial order or guardians of wealth. They were custodians of knowledge and visionaries of cosmic significance. In understanding the prophecy, one begins to see the depth of their foresight, the sophistication of their symbolism, and the subtlety with which they sought to preserve and transmit forbidden wisdom. The hidden revelation is both awe-inspiring and unsettling, a reminder that some truths are eternal, patiently waiting for those who possess the patience, insight, and courage to perceive them. In this convergence of history, prophecy, and cosmic alignment, the Templars' legacy is fully realized, revealing a vision of the world where the visible and invisible, the ordinary and extraordinary, are inextricably intertwined, and where humanity itself is invited to awaken to the hidden dimensions of existence. As the saga of the Knights Templar and the Red Eclipse comes to its final chapter, it is impossible not to feel the weight of their legacy stretching across centuries, casting shadows and light over history, culture, and human consciousness. The Templars were never merely warriors. They were custodians of knowledge, keepers of secrets, and architects of a worldview that saw the earthly and the divine as inseparably intertwined. Their influence is subtle, often invisible, yet it persists in ways that shape how history unfolded and continues to whisper to those willing to look beyond the surface. The story of the Order challenges conventional narratives, reminding us that the visible events recorded in chronicles and annals are often only fragments of a deeper, hidden reality. Behind every fortress, every manuscript, and every cryptic symbol lies the imprint of a meticulous mind, a deliberate attempt to preserve wisdom for those capable of understanding it. In examining the Templars, one begins to realize that their true mission was never conquest or mere accumulation of wealth. It was the careful guardianship of knowledge considered too potent, too dangerous, or too transformative to be entrusted to the uninitiated. Their libraries, crypts, and secret chambers were not simply storage spaces. They were sanctuaries of insight, repositories of a cosmic understanding that intertwined astronomy, theology, philosophy, and esoteric science. These were not the simple superstitions of medieval knights. They were sophisticated observations, encoded in symbols, rituals, and architecture, designed to survive the fall of the Order, the passage of time, and the pressures of a world often hostile to anything it could not immediately control or understand. And while the Templars may have been publicly vilified, their legacy quietly endured. Some of their techniques of secrecy were transmitted to later societies. Their symbols resurfaced in art and architecture, and their understanding of celestial and terrestrial alignment persisted, influencing thinkers, architects, and initiates who had no direct contact with the Order. Their teachings were subtle, carefully concealed, yet profoundly enduring, a testament to the foresight and discipline of those who realize that the most dangerous knowledge is that which is both powerful and misunderstood. The Red Eclipse, central to their prophecies, serves as a metaphor as well as a literal celestial event, marking the convergence of hidden knowledge and human perception. Its significance transcends history, suggesting that the cosmos itself can act as a guide, a signal, or a key for those prepared to interpret its meaning. The Templars believed that understanding these patterns was not merely an intellectual exercise. It was a spiritual responsibility, a means of aligning oneself with a greater order of the universe. To them, the universe was a living text, written in the language of geometry, light, and celestial cycles, and only those with the training, patience, and insight could hope to read it correctly. Throughout their existence, the Templars cultivated this vision, understanding that human history is cyclical, that knowledge emerges and disappears in waves, and that insight must be preserved across generations to avoid being lost forever. They designed rituals, encoded manuscripts, and created sacred spaces not simply for secrecy's sake, but to protect the integrity of the wisdom contained within. Each manuscript, each relic, each cryptic symbol was a deliberate part of a grand design, a system of preservation that would survive persecution, war, and the inexorable erosion of time. In contemplating their legacy, one begins to see the delicate balance they maintained between revelation and concealment, between accessibility and protection. Knowledge, they understood, is never neutral. In untrained hands, it can become destructive. In those attuned to its depth, it becomes transformative. This duality is central to understanding the Templars' philosophy and to appreciating the significance of their Red Eclipse prophecy. The eclipse, in this sense, is more than a moment in time. It is a symbol of awakening, a cosmic signpost that calls for discernment and insight. Modern observers, scholars, and seekers who study the echoes of Templar influence often find themselves tracing patterns that seem almost impossibly intricate, connecting architecture, sacred geometry, astronomical alignments, and historical events into a coherent, if hidden, narrative. They notice how the placement of a cathedral, the orientation of a tomb, or the subtle symbols carved in a stone may all act as a kind of code, left intentionally to guide those who are capable of seeing beyond the obvious. Even today, there are those who claim that fragments of Templar manuscripts contain knowledge that could alter our understanding of history, religion, and the cosmos itself. From arcane mathematical principles to meditations on human consciousness and the cycles of the universe, these writings hint at a profound comprehension of the interplay between earthly existence and celestial forces. The guardians of this knowledge, both historical and contemporary, continue to operate in shadows, ensuring that such insights are revealed only to those prepared to wield them responsibly. In a way, this enduring secrecy is a testament to the Templars' foresight. They recognized that wisdom without discipline, insight without preparation, is not true understanding. The Templar story invites reflection on the invisible currents that shape human civilization. Their careful stewardship of knowledge suggests that much of history is shaped not just by battles, politics, or power, but by those who work quietly to preserve, interpret, and transmit insight across generations. These unseen influences challenge our assumptions, reminding us that the world is far more layered than the written record alone can reveal. And yet, their legacy is not just one of secrecy. It is also one of inspiration, calling upon modern seekers to remain curious, vigilant, and discerning. In studying the Templars, we are reminded that true understanding requires patience, careful observation, and respect for the power of knowledge. Theirs was a vision of history and existence in which the ordinary and extraordinary are intertwined, where the visible and invisible communicate through symbols, architecture, ritual, and celestial events. Their teachings, encoded in every aspect of their order, suggest a worldview in which humanity is part of a larger, ordered cosmos, where every event, every alignment, every act of understanding contributes to a greater pattern. The Red Eclipse, the ultimate symbol of Templar prophecy, is emblematic of this vision. It reminds us that moments of revelation are rare and fleeting, requiring preparation, insight, and awareness to be recognized and understood. It is both a literal and metaphorical event, a reminder that the hidden often exists in parallel with the visible, waiting for those who are attuned to perceive it. In reflecting on their enduring influence, it becomes apparent that the Knights Templar were far more than a medieval military order. They were philosophers, scientists, mystics, and custodians of knowledge that transcended the ordinary limitations of their time. They understood cycles, patterns, and the interplay of cosmic and terrestrial forces in ways that remain astonishing even today. Their work was not merely historical. It was a call to consciousness, an invitation to recognize the deeper currents of existence and the responsibility that comes with understanding. In the final reckoning, the Templars leave behind a legacy that is simultaneously mysterious and illuminating, cautionary and inspiring. Their story challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to question received narratives, and to remain aware that what is visible is often only a fraction of reality. Their prophecies, symbols, and concealed knowledge are reminders that history is layered, that truth is sometimes hidden, and that the pursuit of wisdom requires both courage and humility. As the shadows of the past stretch into the present, the Templars' vision endures, quietly guiding those who are willing to seek, interpret, and awaken to the hidden dimensions of the world. Their message is clear. Some mysteries are eternal, some knowledge is sacred, and some revelations arrive only when the observer is ready. In contemplating the Red Eclipse, in tracing the symbols and relics of the order, and in reflecting on the centuries of secrecy they maintained, we are reminded that the pursuit of understanding is an unending journey, one that continues to challenge, inspire, and beckon us toward the hidden truths that lie just beyond the edge of perception. The Knights Templar, through their foresight, discipline, and devotion to the preservation of knowledge, leave a final, enduring lesson: that the path to wisdom is not straightforward, that true understanding is protected by patience and discernment, and that the universe itself may be whispering secrets to those who are willing to listen, patiently, carefully, and with an open mind. Their legacy is not confined to history books, ruins, or relics. It lives in the questions they leave behind, in the mysteries that endure, and in the invitation to explore the hidden dimensions of our world and our consciousness. To follow their trail is to accept the challenge of seeing beyond appearances, of recognizing the subtle, often invisible forces that shape reality, and of understanding that some truths are not given. They are discovered slowly through careful observation, insight, and the willingness to step beyond the ordinary. In the end, the Knights Templar remain a beacon of hidden wisdom, a testament to the enduring power of knowledge preserved across centuries, and a reminder that some mysteries, like the Red Eclipse, are eternal, patiently waiting for those prepared to see, understand, and awaken to the secrets that lie just beyond the veil of history.